working as a leader in communities?
I think the way I think about forgiveness in the movement is about giving each other grace, right? About the understanding and believing that we are all imperfect people and we are all going to make mistakes. There's nobody perfect in this room and nobody perfect outside of this room. And what happens often, we're so consumed by the work that if someone in our movements makes a mistake, the immediate reaction is we're ready to tear them down and destroy their lives. And that is just not okay. It's an opportunity for me when I look at forgiveness, is that if someone in my movement, and this has happened to me many times before, has said something that hurt me or did something that I was offended by, my immediate reaction is to go and have a conversation with that person. This is 2019. Everybody got social media. Everybody's emails are public these days, particularly if it's a visible leader in the movement. Drop them an email and say, look, I really appreciate the work that you do, but there was something that happened the other day that really kind of made me feel a certain way, and I'd love to have a conversation about you. I'd like for you to give me a clarification. Maybe I didn't hear right, because oftentimes we forget that we listen to things through our own biases, right? We look at things through our own lenses and not the lenses of the people who we may be upset with at the moment. And oftentimes we need to also realize that when we talk about, who gets forgiveness and who doesn't, it's never the people of color. Like the white, you've seen these new things that happen. I'll give you an example. Like recently, Alyssa Milano said something on Twitter like, I'm trans, I'm this, I'm that. I don't know, she made a list of things. And people who are actually black and trans were like, no, that's not who you are, and don't claim an identity that you are not, especially as a white privileged woman who has everything given to her on a silver platter. And she was so offended by it. She kept doubling down, and people were asking us and asking black trans people and minority communities to give her grace, to forgive her, because she's doing so much important work. Her voice is so important in the movement. And the only thing that I can think of was, I wish that we would have given Tamika D. Mallory that same grace, right? I wish we would have given black women and black men and Mark Lamont Hill maybe some grace, right? Or maybe we should have gave Dr. Michelle Alexander, who wrote an op-ed that upset a lot of people. But before Dr. Michelle Alexander wrote that piece about Palestine, she was apparently a celebrated scholar amongst every community, right? The minute she went a little bit out of her little box, then all of a sudden she was literally attacked viciously in a way that I think is absolutely unacceptable. So what I say to people about forgiveness is, I'm not asking for forgiveness from people. And I don't forgive people who do really bad things to people in a way that's, even though it's a tenet of my faith, but I still have a hard time, because forgiveness is also a process, and I haven't gotten there yet. We have to be honest. Sometimes we know this. You may be right now sitting in this room upset at somebody in your family from 10 years ago, right? You have not yet came to forgive them. I haven't gotten to places where I've forgiven everybody. I just haven't gotten it. But what I do say to people is that I give people grace, and I try. And I try to understand, particularly, and I'm not saying a grace from the people who you know are opposed to you. I'm talking about people that are supposed to be part of our human family, that are in our movements with us, maybe on the same tables that we sit at, or same organizations that we're a part of. That when somebody does something that makes you feel a certain way, have a conversation. Give people the benefit of the doubt. Just remind yourself of the inherent goodness of people, that not everybody's malicious, not everybody is ill-willed, that I think that we would be in a much better place as a movement if we did that.
Let's talk about feminism. So, I know it means a lot of different things to different people. How would you define feminism today?
I think feminism for me is an intersectional space where women can be all of them. Everything that you are as a woman, every other identity that you bring to the table gets welcomed alongside your womanness. And I think that oftentimes in the past, feminism has been about your womanness and leave everything else outside. And I think that is why we have not had successful feminist movements in America. Feminism is interesting to me because I never really considered myself to be a feminist because of my own kind of skepticism of what people meant by feminism. Does feminism include Muslim women in hijab? Oftentimes the most liberal of the feminists are the ones that are in Afghanistan trying to liberate the Muslim women from the hijabs. Feminism is like a secular government like France who does not allow women to wear hijab, for example, in public university or public sector jobs, right? And to qualify that, just like I'm upset at a country like France who wants to, that wants to deny women's right to wear hijab, I'm also outraged at countries like Iran who want to force women to wear hijab, so I just want to make that clear. So for me, feminism is about me being in a space and allowing everyone else to be in a space where they can be all themselves.
So, not many young people here today, but I'm sure they're represented in the audience. What do you say to young people who are challenged with being activists, being advocates for various movements, various struggles, but yet They know that it's important for them to get an internship or a job or to move forward in the world in the sense of being a part of capitalism. What do you say to young people today who are struggling with that?
Believe it or not, I was on, before anyone knew who I was on a Tyra Banks show in like 2000, it was like 2007. And I was literally like on a talk show, and the talk show was about what they did some sort of experiment where they brought random people in a room and they showed them a name, just a name. They didn't know who the person was, just a name. And it was all kinds of names like Jose, and my daughter was one of the names, Sajida is her name. And anyway, the idea was for the people around the table, what is the first thing that comes to mind when you hear this name? And you already can imagine, right, when they heard Jose, they were like, oh, he's a delivery man, he's probably doesn't have papers, probably standing on a street corner drinking a 40, like all kinds of racist like stuff. And then in fact they mixed up the black girl with the white girl. Like the black girl was named Ashley, but of course Ashley to them was this like affluent white girl who like went to college and all this stuff. And then Deidrika was the name of the white girl who they thought was black, right? And they said all these things. She probably has 4 sons and 4 kids by 4 different fathers. It was outrageous. There's a video of it on YouTube. Anyhow, and the reason why I bring up that story to your question is that one of my answers to when I was able to witness the video about my daughter's name on the spot. And one of the things I said there, my response when Tyra asked me, like, how did this make me feel? And I said, if a school or a place of work, right, is not gonna want my child for who they think my child is, or based on my child's political views, or for their race, or their perceived religion, or their perceived ethnicity. I don't want my daughter at no damn school or any corporation, and I'm willing to allow, at least on my daughter's behalf, that sacrifice. And I think that activism isn't for everybody. Not everybody's gonna be an activist, not everybody can be a good activist, and so everybody just gotta play their role. And for young people, I say, look, some of us gotta sacrifice. Like, I'm never gonna have a job, ever, in my life. I'm pretty positive about that. I may be able to work in my own community, and which is kind of what I do right now, which is why I'm independent in the way that my community supports the work that I do. But I'm probably not gonna be able to work at a corporation, right? And I'm probably not gonna be, that was a sacrifice that I had to make, that I'm not gonna be able to have a regular normal job. I'm not gonna have a 401k plan. My retirement plan is my children, in hopes that they get some kind of job that because that's really like, I'm actually like, I think about that sometimes, like what am I gonna do when I'm 65 years old? And I'm not saying that to scare young people, but I'm asking for people to sit and think about the kind of sacrifices that we're gonna have to make for our people, particularly for people of color, that if this is reality, that sometimes if you're gonna profess your political views publicly, if you're gonna fight for your people publicly, you're probably not gonna get into the university that you wanna get into. You're probably not gonna get that job that you want. And that's just reality. So I'm not gonna lie to young people and say, go out there and say all the things you wanna say and do the things that you do, and your life is gonna go just as it's planned. It's not gonna go as it's planned. And people historically, elders in our communities will tell you that they've lost out on a lot of opportunities because of being up there, convictions of standing up. So I've given up a lot on a lot of things. And in fact, for my own children, and many people know that I have kids, but they don't know that my kids are in college. So my kids are college students, and they don't have the same last name as me, and I made that a specific choice, right? Because I don't want my kids to be treated a particular way because somebody knows that they're my kids. I want them to be able to live in a world where they can be themselves without their association to me, and that's very important to me. I don't have my kids with me at rallies. Like, people don't see me in close connection. That's not right. It's not fair to me that I live in a country where I'm not even safe being who I am. So that's what activism is. Unfortunately, it's moments of not being safe. It's moments of courage, and it's moments of saying things that people don't want to hear. And I know that there are a lot of young people already doing this in our country. They are sacrificing. They're here in North Carolina. They're fighting against Confederate monuments and bringing down Confederate monuments and Confederate flags, and I hope that you support them. Right now, on April 25th, there's a court case here on the last charges against young black people in this community who are, working against bringing down a Confederate monument. And they pick the poorest people, right? The people who have everything to lose, and now there's a court case against them. I hope you support their legal defense, that you donate to their legal defense. Really is. Don't let these young people fight for themselves by themselves, right? They did this for all of you. They want Hillsborough, they want North Carolina to be representative of their true values, right? Democracy, of justice for all people, that all the people of North Carolina are people that deserve to be treated with dignity and respect, and that's what they're fighting for, and I hope that you fight for them too.
Someone wants to know, when are you announcing your 2020 congressional candidacy?
When I was 26 years old, which was a long time ago, I'm almost gonna be 40, just to give you a perspective. I did think about running for office. When I was 26, I was like that young person. I was fired up. I was like, I'm the change that I want to see, and I want to be in elected office. And then I realized that I had a different kind of power, and my power was in mobilizing other people to put other people in office. It's never just about me. It wasn't just about putting someone that looks like me. And here I am, almost 14 years after I had said I was interested in being an elected official, that I got to see the first two Muslim women in Congress, that I got to see a Palestinian woman in Congress. I actually spent the summer in Michigan working on Rashida Tlaib's campaign. I worked on Dr. Abdullah Sayed's campaign. I was working for a gubernatorial candidate who could have been the first Muslim governor in America, right? So for me, I found my role, and my role is to elect progressives. My role is to inspire and mobilize people to the polls, and that's what I do, and I do it really well, and I love it. And if the question is, would I ever be in Congress? Definitely not in 2020, because I got a lot of work to do in 2020. Lots of work to do. I'm gonna knock doors till my knuckles bleed, and I hope that you will also do the same, to make sure that we don't have a fascist for another 4 years in this in office. And I will say that in the future, maybe when I'm like, because this is what my my advice to myself is, like, I'm gonna need some sort of financial security. Maybe I'll get a pension and go to Congress when I'm like 60 or something. I'll still have a little edge to me, and I'll still have a little spark and fire. But I think what I imagine my vision is that you can't just go into a place like Congress and just be like 25 progressives, right? My vision would be to go to a Congress that has 50% progressive, 60% progressive. Like, you want to go in there with a movement, a revolution. I'm tired of fighting. I'm not going to go into Congress to keep screaming loud and loud. I want to go there where my voice doesn't have to be so loud, where I'm already going to be joined by other voices of justice and democracy, and people who stand up for working families and for poor people and people of color. And I see that in our future. As much as we see darkness, I see that in our future. I see more young people and trans people and Muslims and refugees in Congress. I see more women in Congress, and I see it. Like it's so clear for me to see it, and I reach for it all the time. So people might even ask, like, why do I even do this? Why do it? Like, with all the stuff that we almost feel like we're going backwards. Like, yeah, we feel like that sometimes, but I'm telling you, the path is clear. Like, I see it. We just gotta all stand up. We just gotta all do the basics. Like, imagine if we just got our family members to go to the polls. Just our family, just the people that are the most immediate to us. Don't worry about everybody else in the streets. Just our local people, just our neighbors, go to the polls. And 2020 is going to be the test for the American public. I really believe that's going to be our test. And I keep telling people I believe in the American people. I mean, I think the American people in 2016 believed so much in America that they didn't think that America would elect a racist fascist, which is really how I rationalize it. I think they were like, this is like any other election. There's no way this idiot's getting into that. I mean, I'm not going to even waste my time going to the polls. Well, this is what happened. And I hope that we learned our lesson, and that 2020 is the year that we show what we're really made of as a country.
Winston Churchill stated, "You will never reach your destination if you stop and throw stones at every dog that barks." So having thick skin and not taking things personal, in particular for women, is really, really important for women. So how do you manage the naysayers, the critics, when you're misquoted, all that? What are your strategies?
I actually remember something that gubernatorial candidate Andrew Gillum said that I was like literally rewinded like 25 million times to watch it. He said, "A hit dog hollers." And when the people holler and they're in your opposition, it's because you hit them somewhere, right? You made them question their own positions and their own convictions, and now they're all like, oh man, now we're being exposed for who we really were. We were pretty good until this lady came along and started exposing the things that we believe that don't actually align with the values of justice and equality, so we're hollering out here in the street. I don't take anything personal, because it's not about me. It's about what we represent, particularly as women of color in leadership and in power, and people who are effective organizers. We represent the changing demographics in America. We represent truth-telling in America in a way that this country has never liked. I mean, you can take it back. Show me a truth teller show me someone in American history that you value as a hero, or as someone who you want to follow in their footsteps, who didn't have naysayers or doubters or people who vilified them. Everybody, that Rosa Parks, women in this, Gloria Steinem. You can talk about women suffragists. You can talk about Dr. Martin Luther King. I mean, Malcolm X. I mean, we've even gotten to the point in this country. We have to remember this, that when Malcolm X was assassinated, he was 37 years old, right? When Dr. Martin Luther King was assassinated, who, by the way, they told us was the most peaceful man, he was like this nonviolent, that's what they tell us. If he was so peaceful and nonviolent, why did he get assassinated when he was only 39 years old? We could have really used him for a couple of more decades to help usher us in the place that we should have been right now. So I know my history. There's nothing special about me. I'm not an anomaly. I'm another generation of truth tellers who's willing to sacrifice everything that I believe in. I'm willing to put my life on the line. Like, I'm not afraid to die in this country. And that is my legacy. If something happens to me, I already got it all taken care of. I got life insurance. My kids got great-grandparents. They have a wonderful father. They have cousins and aunts and uncles and an entire community ready to take care of my kids. And my kids know that. I've had these hard conversations with them because I've had very credible death threats that have come to my life. And I'm going to share one really quick story with all of you just so you understand what's happening in our country right now. So it's not just people who oppose me. When the Pittsburgh shooting happened, that was on Shabbat. I don't know if you remember the day before there was a pipe bomber, right, who was sending pipe bombs all across the country to all these people that were basically oppositional to the Trump administration. A few days before that, this all happened in 1 week. There was the guy in Kentucky who went to the black church, couldn't get into the black churches, it was locked, so he went to the Kroger supermarket and shot two black people who were not related, who were just shopping at Kroger's. That all happened in 1 week. Monday after the Pittsburgh shooting, while our country was literally in shock, everybody, people in grief and in sorrow, and us being like, how could we let things like this happen in our country? And I was one of those people. I was sitting at home, I work from home now, talking to a friend on the phone, my doorbell rings. I look out the window, it's two white men wearing plaid shirts, bubble vests, jeans, sneakers. And I tell my friend on the phone, I'm like, I don't know why these two white men are standing in front of my house. So my friend's like, don't open the door. But at the time, there was some construction happening outside of my house. There was a Con Edison was there doing some piping under the ground. So I tell my friend, look, there is some construction. I'm just very curious. Like, I'm also Arab nosy. Like, we are very nosy. It's actually a true stereotype that I'm not going to tell you. And there was no way that I was going to be able to like, survive the next day or two without being like, who are these two damn men that are fighting in my house? And nobody actually knows my home address. Most people don't, but I was really curious. A lot of people think where my parents live is where I live. I opened the door. I said, who are you? They were like, are you Linda Sarsour? I was like, yes, I am. I said, who are you? They said, we are the New York State FBI. And then, of course, you know, I have my Know Your Rights training, so I asked them for their badges. I wanted to make sure to confirm that they were New York State FBI agents, and they absolutely were. And the minute that I decided that they were real FBI agents, I said to them, I'm sorry, I'm uncomfortable speaking to you without my lawyer. And they said, look, we understand your concerns and we respect your wishes. We just, and as a Muslim activist, I just want you to be clear about the psychological warfare that we have when it comes to interactions with law enforcement. Immediately, the first thought I had to my head was the Islamophobes concocted some sort of thing, and I'm in a thing right now, in a situation. And even though in my heart I knew I was like 1,000% innocent, like I know myself, I don't engage in any criminal activity, I don't support people who engage in criminal activity, but there was something, a psychological thing that happened where I literally, like my gut told me that this is going to be bad. And so when the FBI agent saw me, he knew exactly what I was thinking. He said, look, I understand your concerns and I respect your wishes. I just want you to know, we're not here to investigate you or anybody that you know. I'm not gonna lie to you, in that moment, I felt like 5,000 bags of rocks just came off my shoulder. And he saw me, I literally was like, that's what I did. And then the FBI agent said to me, so when he said he's not here to investigate me or anybody that I knew, I said, okay, so what are you doing here? And he said, we want you to know there was a live and open investigation into the home of the pipe bomber in Florida. And while we were raiding his home in Florida, as you know, he's been arrested, we want you to know that we found 4 addresses for you in your name, right? We found in his computer pages that he had basically had like tabs open about me. And that he had 4 addresses for me. One was my home address, which is where they were. One was my mother's address, right? One was the address of the Arab American Association of Europe, which many people know I served as the executive director of for 12 years. And the 4th address was of a foundation that had funded me in the past. And the reason why he chose that is because I was on their speakers bureau. So those were the 4 addresses. And so I thought to myself, and this is what I asked the FBI agent, I said, look, I'm not President Obama, nor am I Vice President Biden, nor am I George Soros. Like, these are people who are very, people with resources. These are people who don't get their own mail. Like, people intercept the mail of these people, right? And I said to them, what am I supposed to do if this type of mail comes to my house and the FBI agent says, if you see a suspicious package, call 911. And so what I want people to get from the story is that this is a serious situation. and I'm hardly home, I'm here with Hillsborough, what if somebody sent me out to my home? My kids don't have any idea how to figure out what a suspicious package is or what's not a suspicious package. That my kid's life could be taken because their mother decided to stand up for their rights in this country, or that my mother has some particular position. I went to the University of Southern Florida where a man on the page said that he was asking people on the page, what color, make, and model car will Linda be arriving in? And what exit and entrances will she be using? Does anybody know if she's gonna be wearing body armor? And when that comment was reported, it turns out that the guy worked at the University of Southern Florida Hospital. And why the local police department went there, they went to search his car. In his car, he had literally AR-15s in his car. As you know, Florida is an open carry state. And so people need to understand that what I have to endure, I chose this life. I'm not telling anybody to have sympathy or empathy for me. I chose this. I could decide not to do this. But I will tell you, I'm not afraid to die in this country because I won't be the first or the last person to fight for my rights or the rights of the most marginalized and find myself 6 feet under. But knowing that my children and my grandchildren and my community that this woman died fighting for our rights in this country, that means a lot to me and that gives me a lot of solace. So I want you to understand that I'm content with that. I've come to terms with it. I'm okay with it. But I hope that you're not okay with it. It's not okay for us to know that people in our country could die just for the things that they believe in. It's not okay. We need to stand up when we see women being attacked. Because it's not just the guy writing on Twitter that I support things that I don't actually support. It's about the impact that happens of the things that you don't see, like the mail that comes to our homes, the phone calls that our parents have to get, because my mom still thinks she needs a landline, and my mom's still with a phone bill. These are the things that my family has had to endure, and so I appreciate people's concern about that, but I want you to know that I'm good. I'm content with it, and I have a lot of resolve in the work that I do.
Any regrets for doing